Suppository is probably what you would have to do anyway because your GI tract is completely different now.
Completely different. And so, and it's not moving.
Yeah.
So the laxatives are having no impact on this thing.
Yeah.
It's
and how much do you weigh at this point?
So I'm probably, in the 350, 340,
Yeah. So you're a big dude.
So I'm still a big guy and nothing's moving. I'm in horrible pain.
Yeah.
And my wife's really worried about me and nothing's working.
Yeah.
So now I got to get up on a bed and she's got to
do the sideways,
leg
leg
up in the air in this uncomfortableness, and she's shoving things in my butthole.
Yeah, I mean, so like I would hope it would be suppositories, but if you're doing other stuff,
well, that
like
was for fun.
That's not dramatic.
It's different.
Yeah.
It's different. So she's like,
but listen, she's a mom. She's
a mom. She's had babies, right? And
right.
And she's like, this is love. This is what love is like. Like people talk about romantic love.
No,
love is shoving a suppository
yes.
up your partner's butthole.
Yeah,
that's real, true love.
Welcome to the show beyond the show, the off-the-record conversation between me, Dr. Neil Smoller, holistic pharmacist and supplement strategist, and Mark DeCicco of RTD Fitness. But I would hope that they would know who we are since they're paying the money.
If you're paying money for this, you better know who we are at this point. I mean,
and if you are paying money, I just want to say how much we appreciate that very, very much.
We need it.
Yeah, we need it's more not about the dollars to pay the bills. It's more about the adoration to know that people actually like us. We have very bad ego problems.
Fragile egos, and we need to know that you're paying for this premium product because it's the best out there.
We're going to talk today. This is the second half of the conversation about the Book of Mark. This is the Volume 2 edition. This is the juicy stuff. Before we get started, off the record, I feel like we really need to start talking about our music taste.
Sure.
I think that would fit here. So let's do a vibe check. What did you listen to on the way in today?
Yeah, definitely. So I've been on a real thick, big pun kick of late. So the Capital Punishment album, the Capital Punishment album has been nonstop on my playlist. So then I get so I have a YouTube premium account. Some people use Spotify or whatever. I don't know what you people use.
YouTube Premium.
But I'm a YouTube Premium guy.
Flex?
I spend the money, right? So I'm not afraid to spend the money. So
clearly.
So I just make it rain with the YouTube. So then I get the algorithm, and then it starts giving me like the locks. It starts giving me all my rap that I want to hear, and so that's excellent. The other thing I will say, shout out Griselda, Benny the Butcher. I love me some Tana Talk 4. It's one of the best albums of the year. So if you haven't listened to Tana Talk 4,
I have not.
Benny the Butcher. He's Buffalo's finest. One of the best rappers
out
there.
Is this a wrestler again?
No, he's a rapper.
Oh, he's a rapper.
But there's a whole skit.
So he's like an underground guy?
There's a skit that he does with the Mad Rapper, where the Mad Rapper comes into the skit and says, "Benny the Butcher, what is that? Some kind of WWE guy?" It's amazing. So I'm not doing it the right service, but so Benny the Butcher, Griselda, West Side Gun, that whole Griselda crew. Shout out Griselda.
So it's really interesting because two middle-aged white guys talking about hip. I went to Six Flags yesterday, and I had my Wu-Tang t-shirt on.
Have to.
And, somebody in line was like, "Oh, you like Wu-Tang?" And I'm like, "Oh, you're the music police now?"
Yeah,
like,
what are you here to charge me or something?
So I said, "Do you like Wu-Tang?" I hope so. And,
who doesn't like Wu-Tang?
You can't not. They changed the face of music, period.
Yeah, but even if that weren't true, which it is, who listens to Wu-Tang and doesn't get excited?
My kids' friends.
Oh, that's
so
sad.
It's horrible, Mark. We were at a barbecue and like they were listening to the young Uzi.
Little verts of Uzis.
Whatever. They're drinking cough medicine and they don't have symptoms, so it's very irresponsible.
That's weird. That's a weird thing to do.
And I said, stop. I slapped the phone out of his hand, made him pick it up, and then I said, listen to this. And I put on 36 Chambers, and I just kind of popped a couple. He's like, oh, this is old school. And it blew my mind. My parents were listening to like Led Zeppelin, which, again, amazing music.
Nobody's mad at that.
Nobody's mad at that. But then we were listening to either I don't know, like Rage Against the Machine
and Neil and I
Wu-Tang.
spent a lot of time at his house. Like Neil and I go back, and we haven't really done a lot of like me and Neil history on this, so Off the Record's a good spot for it. But me and Neil would hang in our teens, and we're in the mid 90s at this point. So hip hop was at its peak in the mid 90s. And so Neil and I knew every rap album that was out, and we would sit.
It was like 15 of them.
And we would sit and we would rap like nonstop, like How High. We would go back and forth, Method Man and Redman, nonstop on that. And so that is, part of our shared history here is like rap is a huge part of it. And we would DJ stuff in Saugerties, and we would play all the best rap stuff because we were plugged into that world.
These kids, they're like,
kids these days.
You like Wu-Tang. That's dumb. And I'm like, what a sentence.
You're dumb.
I'm an adult trying to say, please listen to Wu-Tang. My parents are like, what the, because it was new. Rap was something that was new, and it was like, tied to like a criminal element, the gangster rap stuff. So it was like this whole other thing. And meanwhile, I'm telling these 12-year-olds, like, it's just crazy to me. It blows my mind.
Out, right.
But then the other side of the vibe check should be, so me right now, Sam Smith Promises. I've been, I have horrible taste in music is really what it comes down to.
Here's what I'll say. So my music taste, and people know this about me, vacillates between gangster rap from the 90s.
There's that word again.
And goes between that and
Pat Benatar.
80s soft rock, baby. Like my soft rock game, like I'll listen to Amy Grant. I'm not playing around. Richard Marx, like I'm not fooling around when it comes to soft rock. And so
monster ballads.
Like hardcore, like the softer the better. I actually made a CD set, Sandy Stone, shout out Sandy, my ex-girlfriend, another ex-girlfriend of mine, which is going to get me in a lot of trouble. Like
tell me about
Sandy's
that.
my lesbian ex-girlfriend, which is that's a whole other story. But so Sandy, she has, I gave her all these mixtapes in the early 2000s. They were called Softer the Better. There was a whole volume set of all 80s soft rock hits, and so it was Softer the Better, and then there was So Soft It's Hard, and then there was a mixtape. And that's
oh my god.
Well, that one was different. That one was different. It had different flavors, more going on. And we're off the record, folks. So this is the stuff you're going to get when you get the premium service. This is what you're paying for.
I'm deleting that whole
thing. You're
out.
paying for this. So this is what we're doing. So this is what's happening.
Just for the record, because it's going to be just blank air when that last one comes up.
The other thing you need to know is I got back from the Syracuse State Fair. And we went to the state fair because this was the summer of no scrubs. So I had my daughter and my two nieces in the car, and the algorithm hit on the YouTube Premium, and TLC hit with no scrubs. These preteens were like, what did I just hear? Boys are the worst, so this song is incredible.
Really?
And I was like, this is a didactic tale. This is an educational tune about avoiding guys hanging out the passenger side of their best friend's ride, trying to holler at you. These are not men that you want to be around. Stay away from these guys. And I was using it as a chance, an opportunity to teach them. Lo and behold, TLC, at this point, T-Boz and Chili, because we know, rest in peace, Lisa Leslie Lopez. She's not with us anymore. Big up. She wasn't there, obviously, because she's dead. But the other two who are alive were there with their dancers at the state fair Friday night. So we went to the state fair just to see TLC because we had this No Scrubs revelation earlier in the summer. So I have a video of my daughter dancing in the dark to No Scrubs. Their first concert is TLC. There was not a hologram. People thought there might be a hologram of Lisa. There was no Left Eye Lopez hologram, but they did play all our parts, and people put their phones up in the air and waved them in the air like they just didn't care. I don't know if you understand what's going on now in the state of New York, but the marijuana smoking that's allowed to happen here in this state.
It's wild, isn't it?
Especially at the fair. So we're standing in this crowd. I've got my kid, and it's like, it is just a fog of weed. And I'm like, my kid
Lila's
is like,
blazed.
So she's blazed out of her mind. We're all just sitting there like, this is probably not okay that everyone's smoking weed around us. But I had my kid there. It's like, what are you going to do? So it was fine.
Yeah.
But the concert, they were incredible. T-Boz, and Chili is in incredible shape, has not missed a step, and the dancers were all over it. And so TLC's on stage going, you didn't listen to us. Like, we told you about these scrubs, and you're out here dating all these guys.
That's funny.
This was an educational tune. And I go, girls, this is what I told you. This is an educational tune. Chili has just confirmed that for us. And so she also noted that any men that were in the audience were officially not scrubs. So the people who are most qualified to determine whether someone is or isn't a scrub told me specifically that I am not a scrub. So I am a certified non-scrub. I didn't think I was. Just to be clear, I've never thought of myself as a scrub.
That was like from up on high.
But now I mean, it's like a blessing from the Pope. Right. When you get told you're not a scrub from TLC, that feels important. And so they said, listen, if you came to this concert, you're not a scrub. I was like, well, I'm not a scrub. And so, scrub is a guy who thinks he's fly. He's also known as a buster. That's not me. I'm not a buster. No, not a chance. So that's our vibe check. That's our vibe check here early on.
Just a little TLC reference. I got to say that other guy's movie where all he's doing is referring to the TLC songs.
It's incredible.
How beautiful is that?
It's an incredible thing.
It's just so good.
It really is awesome.
All right. So
what about your friends?
I don't know. I just don't understand what are we doing with this podcast, right? Like we're just totally off the rails. And that's off the record. It's off the rails.
Yeah.
That's what we should call it. Off the rails podcast. Mm-hmm. I'm happy that we got that out of our system.
It's important.
What music we're listening to. Let's get back to the conversation around you losing lots of weight.
Sure.
And so there are some, I don't know what Mark's going to say.
Well, there's a bunch of tidbits here. So I saved them for the off the record because it's a little bit of me ranting and being a lunatic. And so I've really tried to stress that I'm not a miserable guy. Like I think I watched the first few episodes of the podcast. I was like, gee, I look angry and like mad at people. I'm not. Like I'm a very happy-go-lucky dude. If you know me, that's the truth. But that doesn't come across if I don't try to, show that here on the podcast. So I'm hoping that you're seeing that, especially on the off the record. We're just a ton of fun. So that being said. These are some juicier tidbits that came from the process that I was involved in. So one of the things that happened was, and I talked about it on the podcast, the Book of Mark that we did. You can go back and watch that. Please subscribe, do all the things. What I said was that I went and met with the doctor. I had lost 30 pounds. I had to lose 42, but I had lost 30. The doctor cleared me for surgery. He says, you're ready to go. I'm going to take the chance on you. I said, well, you better, because I'm going to be successful. I plan on doing this, whether you help me or not, but please help me. And he did. So he said, yep, you're going to have the surgery. We're going to send you to the nurse who's going to schedule the surgery. So I leave his office riding a cloud. I'm like, this is awesome. I'm 390 right now. I'm feeling good. I lost 30 pounds. I'm feeling great. Now my prospects are in line. This is going to be awesome. So I meet with the nurse. Now I had a couple run-ins with this nurse already because she was a little bit like dismissive and kind of a jerk, but she's
This isn't the night. You said there was a nice nurse.
There was a super nice nurse, and this is not her.
Not
this
her.
is a different nurse.
Two different nurses.
She does scheduling, this one. So that's all she does. And she schedules people for the surgery. So I go in, I meet with her. She looks at my chart. She looks at the weight that I had when I came in. And she says, oh, you're down 30 pounds. I'm like, heck yeah, I am. I'm like, man, I'm killing it. I'm down 30 pounds. She's like, well, that's not really the 10% you need to lose. So we're not going to schedule you.
So even though the doctor told you that you're good, this person
whose job it is, who's going to do the surgery,
the doctor,
whose job is like Dr. Neil Smoller, right? This guy's a real doctor. Yeah. And so a surgeon has cleared me for the surgery. I go in to the nurse whose job it is to schedule me for the surgery, and she says, oh, you didn't qualify for the surgery. And so I said, well, that's not what the doctor just got done telling me.
Yeah.
He told me that I'm going to be able to do the surgery. She's like, oh, well, I guess not. Well, guess we'll have you come back in a couple weeks and weigh yourself again and see if you're down the weight. And I was like,
so you had this weight lifted off your chest, and then it gets thrown back on, basically.
Immediately.
Did you literally think like this wasn't going to happen then?
So this was very different than the first time. So the first time when I heard that I had to lose the 10% and I had only lost 5 pounds and I needed to lose another like 37 pounds, I cried. I went home. It was bad.
Yeah.
But it kicked off me doing the yoga stuff, right, as we talked about. I downloaded the app. I got to work. This time, I wanted to be like I was mad, right? I was really mad. But I took it as like, all right, I'm doing this yoga. You need me to lose another 10 pounds to prove to you I've already lost 30. You need me to lose another 10? And that's where I took it. My mindset was different. Like I was in a different frame. So I was like, okay, I'm about to lose this 10. And I'm going to hit that 10 on top of your because that's how I felt.
Wow.
It's deep. It's really bad. Okay.
It's hardcore.
This is not something where you feel really supported in this process. Like this is a very lonely process. And I want to be clear about that. Like I'm going through this. I'm in it. It sucked. Okay. The whole thing.
Right. Because the way that you were selling it before, it felt like this was like a team effort and everybody was happy.
Everybody was trying to help me, but when you're in it. And so let's just be clear about that. Okay. So to hear at any point that it's not going to happen or that things are going to get in the way is really hard to hear. And so I took that though as fuel, and you can see the mindset difference now. I'm like, I will lose those 10 pounds. I'm going to come back here. I'm going to take all my clothes off and weigh myself if that's what it takes. I'm going to lose. Like I would wear the thinnest clothes when I go for my weigh-ins. Like I had all these little tricks. Take my shoes off, take my everything out of my pocket, like you do when you go to the doctor. So I I was like, I can lose the 10. She'll have me come back in a couple weeks. We'll lose the 10. So I'm pissed. But I'm using it as fuel. So I go home. I tell my wife, like, the doctor cleared me, but then the nurse didn't. I'm mad, and I'm like, but I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna stay focused. I'm on it. So then, but I'm still like, oh, come on, man, can I catch a freaking break here? And so. Because I was like, because when I lost the 30, I was like, maybe this won't happen. You know what I mean? I hadn't lost the 10%. So I was like, they could have told me no, because they were very clear. We're not going to do the surgery unless you lose the 10%.
Yeah.
So I go to bed that night. I go back to work the next day. So
you literally think this isn't going to happen anymore?
I think it's not going to happen. I think I got to go back and weigh myself again. But I was confident that in the next couple of weeks,
you would have got it done.
I would have gotten it done, and it would have happened. But it was a huge blow, and I was
This definitely is off the record, because the story seemed like you got the news and the doctor's like, go get him, champ.
Right, and that's not how it went. I put a pin in it when we did that, because I said there's more to the story. So here we are, off the record. So what happened is 9:05 the next morning, I get a phone call from Ellis from the bariatric center. And it's the nurse, tail between her legs. I talked to the doctor. He really wants to get you on the schedule.
Yeah.
And I was like,
thank God. Yeah.
What a relief. And so the victory that I felt at that moment. But again, I was still, even that morning when I received the phone call, like, I'm going to do this. Like, I'm going to, like, I will definitively do this. But to hear those words from her, who had been like my nemesis at this point, that we're getting you on the schedule.
I think this came up when we were talking about the doctor part of this whole thing, and how conventional medicine has to be a part of a true holistic care plan. You cannot live a true holistic life. You cannot live your healthiest and longest life without conventional medicine. It has to be a part of the conversation. That doesn't mean that it's not a stinking nightmare, right?
Or hard to navigate. And I have a lot of stories about how I've been treated as a fat person at a doctor's office, and I can tell you, people think that I'm soft-willed, I'm dumb.
Yeah, I mean, you are dumb. But...
Well, yeah, but like I'm
dumber than you look.
Way dumber than I look. But the treatment of obese people in our society is this idea that I don't have the willpower, and I don't have the knowledge of nutrition, and I'm just lazy.
And you're choosing.
And I'm choosing to do this.
Yeah.
And so for someone who's working their to be treated like, well, maybe if you did things differently, have you thought about not having bread? That's the way that it treats. So like when I go to my primary doctor and I'm talking to her about the weight loss surgery, she was very negative about the weight loss surgery. She's like, I've never seen anybody be successful with it.
Yeah.
And people use it as a tool because they think they're going to lose weight, but really what they end up doing is still eating the same. So if you don't change your eating, it's not going to matter. And I'm like, I got to change my eating. That's the whole idea of this. Like, I know if I do this, I have to change the eating. Of course that's true. But the treatment of like, she was very dismissive, dismissive. And I called her out on that when I went back for my victory lap, because that's dangerous.
Of course.
Your opinion as a medical person about whether or not I'm going to do this and signing a letter saying that I can, because I need a letter from my primary to get this done. Like there's a lot of stuff pre-op that I didn't go into that has to happen. I had a cardiology appointment. I had a psychology appointment that I talked about. I had a lung appointment. I had, and then my regular doctor, right? So, and I have to have blood work done, all these things to make sure that I'm a good candidate. So my doctor could have stopped, my primary could have stopped this from happening. She could have signed off and said, no, he's not got the right mindset for this and he's not going to be successful, so I'm not signing off on it. I had to go to her and ask her to help me. And again, I've talked about this. If I don't ask for help, I don't get it. Every time I've asked for help, I've gotten it, but it hasn't always been easy. And so when I asked her for help, she gave me a lecture. And I can tell you how low it feels to be lectured to by a skinny person about nutrition and willpower and stages of change. To have a middle-aged skinny woman talk to me about how I am fat and what I can do to not be fat, when she can, talk about like portion sizes and not drinking. And it's like neither of those are the issue here. So you're just making assumptions about how I live and how I eat and how I'm designed. And you're assuming that because that's what you see fat people as. And so the societal problem here is huge. And the assumptions that are made about people who are large is insane. And so I'm here to break that up because is the message I have, because that completely undoes any work I'm trying to do, and it minimizes the effort that I'm making, because I was making efforts. There was never a day that I wasn't aware of how fat I was. There was never a day where I didn't try my very best. And every person I meet is trying their very best every day. So to assume that I'm not, or that I'm just don't have the willpower or the ability to do this because of something fundamental about me is.
Yeah.
And so this is not a fun episode.
No, I think it is. It's let me interrupt you, because there's actually something thematic in here.
Yeah.
So Captain COVID, right? And one of the things that I was well regarded for was trying to speak up for people that were that had obstacles to access issues, right?
Marginalized
and
folks.
So the marginalized folks were a big part of it. There was technology, there was transportation, and then there was the marginalization that happens in society with folks of color, right? Yeah. And so the number one selling point that I had when I would have real conversations with people was, how do you think black folk do in American healthcare?
Right.
And
honestly,
and they know it, we all know it,
yeah.
and the healthcare system fails at a number of points.
Yep.
It doesn't mean that the opposite, that the wellness system succeeds. It just means that the healthcare system fails. And so it's really interesting you say that. So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What should somebody say?
Great. That's fantastic. And so you and I have had this conversation, right? Because you were like, so if I had just come to you and been like, hey, Mark, you're really fat, would that have helped you to not be fat? And the answer is no. Like, I am acutely aware of how fat I am. I'm acutely aware of the problems that are here, but I need you to help.
I just want to say for the record that I would have never approached it like that.
But we know each other, like we're friends.
I would have been like, you're fat, but like you would have
done it in a jokey way.
Do you need help?
Well, right.
Is what
and
I
so,
would have said.
And I appreciate that. And people tried that.
Because that's what I said to Mike Spears, so don't even start with me.
No. And you're the fat whisperer, Neil. You're fucking awesome. You're the best fat guy helper that ever lived. Fuck you, Neil. So honestly though, for me, what would have been helpful was asking me questions. What's different this time? What's gonna help you be successful, do you think?
Yeah.
Like asking me to do the work, not telling me that I'm gonna fail, not giving me examples of other people who didn't do it, not talking about how you've cut back on your wine at dinner and you eat less cheese. So using your anecdotes from your own life to talk about how fat I am and how I can make changes when I can see in front of me that you're this skinny person. You have no credibility whatsoever. You, Neil, have no credibility. Skinny lady doctor has no credibility for me whatsoever, because you don't know my life. You don't know what it feels like. You don't know what it's like to be me. So I needed to see people be successful at my size. That's what helped me. What I needed was people to say, you can do this, and I believe in you. I know you can. And so I'm going to give you what you need to be successful here. And so whatever you're saying, I'm going to help you.
So basically the message is like,
meet me, support me,
join
me.
What do you need to help? What do you need? What can I help?
What do you need?
Do you need anything? It's really funny because you were talking about how one of the doctors was talking about the stages of change.
Yep.
And so it was the same doctor that was like, you're not ready for this kind of a thing?
Yes.
Oh my God. So then like she doesn't even recognize that you're in the stage of change where you're ready to act.
Exactly. And so I'm coming to you. And she's like, well, because I'm in stages of change. I'm like, I'm in the change. I'm doing the change. I'm in the change. Like, this is what's happening. And so and there was this real negativity around the magic bullet of having the surgery. So she was making assumptions about me that I'm coming here just because I'm out of options, which I was. So it's not that far off. But that I was going to use this as an excuse or as a crutch and not actually make the changes necessary. And so there were a lot of assumptions made about me and how I was going to be in this process. When I went back to her on my post-op visits way after, when I'd lost well over 100+ pounds, I sat with her and I said, listen, I need you to change the way you talk to people about the surgery, because your impression of the surgery was it's not successful for people. And you said that to me. I'm standing in front of you right now, living proof that this can be successful. So please think about how you talk about this to people, because if I had taken what you had said at face value and not done the surgery, I don't know that I'd be here right now having this conversation with you. So words are important. How people talk about this stuff, especially a trusted medical person, very important. And so
it's interesting because it brings up something that happens, like it happened 6 times today during my consults, where I had people that were in front of me that have a problem. and I know what the answer is. I know a pathway to get that way, but I know that they're not there.
Yeah.
And so the way that I've always approached it is I said, listen, what I can help you with is this. And I'm happy to talk about this, this, and this, right? Yep. And so the way that I see it sitting here, this is the pathway, this is the priority, this is how you would do it. When you're ready, you come see me and I'll help you with this stuff.
Yep.
And that probably, I would hope that that's the way that people would want to hear it. You know, because there's a disappointment I see in people's. It's a double-edged sword. You know, being the person giving the advice. Clearly, the bedside manner, at least as it was perceived, was not good. And you probably shouldn't be going to that doctor anymore because clearly, you guys don't
well,
vibe.
And what was nice though was she could hear it from me when I went back to her. And so, she's a nurse practitioner, which that's a doctor. I mean, she's a doctor for me.
She's a prescriber. Yep.
Yeah. And so, she was able to hear my feedback, and she was able to say, I really did have negative impressions of and I thought of it as a sort of magic bullet type thing for folks who feel like they're out of options. And so I don't recommend it to folks, if they're not ready. And so, and I said that has implications. You don't know, you can't make that call. You don't know who's going to be or not be successful. And I knew it was a major decision. Of course I knew that. So it's hard. And I get the position she was in. She sees people come through and she doesn't want me to not be successful, right? So she's coming from a place where if that was what I was doing, right? If I was coming to just have this magic cure and then I don't change my behavior, I wouldn't have been successful. So she's not wrong that would have been the case, but it's an assumption about me. Right. And so
she didn't ask the right questions.
No.
Right. And she was talking. And that's another good lesson for the practitioners that listen to this podcast is that you should be asking stuff, not talking.
And she could have said, what do you think's different? If she had said to me, what do you think's different this time? I would have. I'm tuned in, man. My mindset is here. I'm here. I'm in it.
Where are you at? Where are you at?
What's your deal?
So tell me the story.
Yeah. So that's sort of the run-ins I had at the doctor's offices. So now some of the more juicy stuff around the actual surgery stuff, right? So there I am. I'm a couple weeks out. I'm trying different foods out. I'm eating half a meatball. I'm trying these new things, and so I'm trying to get nutrition into my body. But I hit a literal wall in my colon. And so it's colon blow, and I'm stuck. And so my butt is not releasing the poops.
Yeah.
And so here I am the way.
And what day past surgery is this?
So I'm probably a month out.
So you have just slowly ramped up your nutrition, and to date, you've been doing okay.
Not bad, not great. Feeling like it's a chore and it's a lot of work.
There's a lot of stuff going on. You've reduced the amount of food that you're taking in.
Yes.
Increased the frequency. There's a lot less there.
Yep.
And so it's
and types of foods you got to build up. You got to titrate up. So you start with some of the same stuff I was eating pre-op.
Mostly liquid.
And then sort of introducing little bits of tuna with
mashed foods,
a little bit of mashed foods. It's all got to be very soft foods. And so a lot of soft foods, trying to not, make it hard for my body to digest. I'm moving through some of this stuff. I find myself horribly constipated. So my wife runs the store. She grabs all the laxative she can get her hands on. So I'm chugging laxative, chugging it, sitting on the toilet for hours.
So you felt like you had something to go, but it
was there.
Yeah.
And it was not.
Was it really there?
The turtle head wasn't even poking out.
Yeah.
I could not get it to the surface. So we do all the laxatives. Still, no movement of any kind.
And did they give you a bowel protocol? Did they tell you use this, then this, then this?
They had a pecking order of what to do in what order. Yep. So I reach out to the nurse's line like I'm supposed to. Yeah. I said, listen, this is happening. So here they are telling me okay, so I have to, I tried this. So I try the laxatives, least restrictive option. I try the laxative. I do the laxative, no movement whatsoever.
Yeah.
Now we're into suppositories.
Yeah, I was going to say, enemas and suppositories is probably what you would have to do anyway, because your GI tract is completely different now.
Completely different. And so, and it's not moving.
Yeah.
So the laxatives are having no impact on this thing.
Yeah. And how much do you weigh at this point?
So I'm probably, in the 350, 340,
So you're a big dude.
So I'm still a big guy, and nothing's moving. I'm in horrible pain.
Yeah.
And my wife's really worried about me, and nothing's working.
Yeah.
So now I got to get up on a bed, and she's got to
do the sideways,
leg
up
up in the air,
in
in this uncomfortableness, and she's shoving things in my butthole.
Yeah, I mean, so like I would hope it would be suppositories, but if you're doing other stuff,
well, that
like
was for fun.
That's not dramatic.
It's different.
Yeah.
It's different. So she's like,
but listen, she's a mom. She's a
mom. She's had babies, right? And
right.
and she's like, this is love. This is what love is like. Like people talk about romantic love.
No,
love is shoving a suppository
yes.
up your partner's butthole.
Yeah.
That's real, true love. My wife is going to hate this episode more than the ex-girlfriend episode where I'm talking about all the ex-girlfriends I had.
He had like 2 ex-girlfriends.
It's so bad. This whole thing is bad. It's terrible. But so there I am getting things shoved in my butthole.
Which, again, like for you, a non-medical person, this is a very...
It's gross.
Mild thing. It's gross, but it's really not that bad. So
no, it's bad. If you're living it, it's bad. Now talking about it sounds hilarious, right? Like it's like we're shoving stuff in my butt. But living it, the panic of like, if this doesn't work, so like nothing had worked.
Working.
Nothing had worked.
That's working. Yeah.
But the suppository goes up, and it's still taking a little bit.
Yeah,
like I'm not.
Time. Yeah.
Well, but this is scary, Neil. You're saying it like matter of fact. I'm a medical person.
Well,
Fuck you, Neil. That's fine. Terrible.
I just think that
it's awful.
I think that the idea of a suppository is a very socially negative thing, and it's a weird thing. But to be honest with you, it's not that big of a deal using a suppository. Now, I get the constipation panic because like your head is probably thinking surgery, right?
I'm thinking I'm going to die. Like I'm thinking, well, not die, but I'm like they're going to have to open me up. Like that's where I was at, which was like they're going to have to reopen me up and pull this poop out. Like that's how bad it was. I'm like, or somebody's going to have to get in my and rip that thing out. Like that's how bad it was.
Yeah.
And so, luckily, the suppository worked.
Yeah.
We had enemas and all kinds of things. Like we were ready to go. And so, so like now this has happened. So for the rest of my life, not really, but for the next couple of months, I'm like, I got the shelves stocked with this stuff because I'm like, this could happen at any moment. So this is hanging over my head that like this could happen again, and I don't want it to happen again. Luckily for me,
you don't want it for your wife's
anybody.
Yeah,
like I don't want anybody to be involved in this. And so my wife is a wonderful person. Shout out my wife. She helped me. We put towels down. We did the whole thing, and I was okay.
She's a mom.
She's a mom. For her, it was no big deal. For me, it was like
it's embarrassing.
It was tough,
and we were dealing with some of this stuff too because before we went to Europe, Aaron's grandfather was end of life, and we were doing a lot of the care ourselves.
Yep.
And it's the sons and the daughters were doing some of the the grooming and such,
sure.
and diaper changes and such. And I said, I'm like, listen, that's your blood. I'm the outlaw. Like I'll scrub up and do this.
Whatever you need. I'm your guy, right?
Like
I'm your guy,
right?
And like I've seen, my dad was in a wheelchair, and so we always had to care for him.
Yeah.
Like my grandfather had a stroke, and we cared for him. So like I am all about caretaking, and I'm only bringing this up because it's the real stuff that happens.
For sure.
So I didn't get into it on the regular podcast.
I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad that
I want people to know like what you're getting into, and so like from a just stages of change, but like just from a real life perspective, like this is not a glamorous surgery.
Right.
It's not something where you're going to leave it going like, oh, I feel amazing and I lost 300 pounds in 10 minutes. Like this, the process
it's
of
work.
this, it is work,
and
it's
probably why.
And it's constant, and it's I don't get a day off from any of this. Like I don't get to eat whatever I want ever again. Like that's not an option for me. And so any decision I make around my food has implications. So I had a bunch of Swedish fish today. I'm paying for it. I'm sweating now because I had a bunch of Swedish fish. They were great, and I'm glad I did, and it was awesome. So I don't have no regrets.
Yeah.
But I have to think about this. There's no day that goes by that I don't have to take into account my nutrition.
But the thing is, like, everybody should be doing that anyway.
Of course but the results aren't the same, right? So like the implication,
you're not getting a suppository.
You're not getting a suppository in your right? So like, so like you could eat a bunch of stuff and be fine.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
And
but
so
nutrition, that actually brings up a mindset thing.
Sure.
Where people believe that, they don't make important things important. That's something I say to my patients all the time. We have to make those things important. So, the idea that I don't have time to plan my meals or I don't have time to eat something, that's wrong.
It's not accurate.
And we need to be making, that is the most important thing that you can do. If you want to perform, if you want to get through the day, if you want to be healthy, live a long life, you need to be thinking about that the most.
I mean, it has to be the center of what you're doing. And so, and none of this was going to be successful if I didn't have the nutrition. And I learned the nutrition 8 years ago in 2014 when I lost the weight, right? So I talked about that in the story. So for me, I had to take all the things that I had learned and then put it all together. So doing Neil's, eating, fuel your fire, That's the kind of eating I do. So read that article, because if you want to know the best way to eat, that I have co-signed that. That is absolutely my approach. Getting that food in the morning, I eat at 5 a.m. when I'm up. So I'm up at 5, I'm doing my yoga, and I'm getting my food in my system. I start the day off with food immediately because I got to get the fire going. Yeah. If I wait, people's mistake that they make is that they wait to eat till like whenever.
Yeah.
And people act like they're, intervals, or they're fasting. And it's like, you're not intermittent fasting. You're not getting your body the nutrition that it needs at the time that it needs it. So I wake up, and one of the first things I do in the morning is I have my nutrition. I have my protein, I have my healthy fats, and I have my healthy carbs. First thing in the morning, every day, all day. And I know exactly what I'm going to have tomorrow for breakfast. I know what I'm going to have the day after that.
And it doesn't have to be boring or repetitive. You can vary it. Yeah. It works for me to keep everything consistent.
I am a maniac, and so I like the same stuff. Yeah. And I can tolerate the same stuff every single day. It's not for everyone. People like variety. And so I do my dinners. I always mix up whatever's going on. I mix a vegetable in. I can't wait till we can
kind of like talk.
Yeah, we'll get you. Awesome. We'll get you the whole menu of what I do, and I'll post all that.
I don't care what you do.
It's important though, because that is one of the things people ask me all the time. What do you eat? How do you? What do you? Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter really what I eat. It matters what you eat. It matters what your body needs. And so I can tell you what I eat, but that's not going to be what you need necessarily. Right. But the structure is going to be the same. So this idea of I eat early and I eat often is very important. And so I eat a lot of small meals throughout the day. And all those meals, you can call them snacks, you can call them meals, are healthy carbs, healthy fats, and protein. Every time in combination, because they work best together, along with my vitamins, supplements, the things that I'm taking. And that's my day.
Let's get back to the juicy stuff.
Yeah. So back to the juice. So we have constipation. I got ex-girlfriends. What else? What else did we say we were going to talk about?
I don't know. So was there any other stuff that happened that, like in the post-op phase, that you felt like people need to hear because it kind of pulls back a curtain a little bit of the whole process?
I think the scariness of the second surgery, I talked about that in the other piece, but having that pain in my stomach and then having to go for another emergency surgery was really scary because I didn't know what was happening and I couldn't figure it out and I didn't have a plan. And so it felt very like this is bad, like maybe something's wrong with my surgery. And so, it's a fairly common thing to get a hernia when you have this type of a surgery because of the way they had to work around the fat to do the thing, and he couldn't see the things he was working on. So he was able to go in and do an oil change on me. I talked about that,
which was fantastic. That was really great.
So but that helped me a lot after to feel good about. He saw everything and he felt good about what was going on in there. But all of this comes with risk, and so all of this has that level of like, if it goes south, like you could die, there's real serious implications here. And so I don't mean to minimize the decision around this. And I want to really be clear, like things can go horribly wrong. They make you sign a lot of paperwork around that there could be long-term impacts. Your body can change in ways that you're not prepared for, like the lactose intolerance thing I talked about, which would be horrible for me because I eat a lot of Greek yogurt and I like, milk in my coffee. So that could have happened, right? So you could come out of this entirely different body than the one that came in ways that you're not ready for, in ways that you're not prepared for. And the eating, the way that I eat, the way I think about food as fuel is central to all of this. So if you're not thinking that way, this is a very dangerous game that you could be playing. And so
it sounds like to me that I guess the real revelation here is how, again, another instance of the health and wellness industry kind of failing us, especially when it comes to these kinds of things. And while people aren't really always, people fail at stuff, and I guess that's okay too. But I think that I would rather you try. I'd rather you be pumped up for it. And I think that there's more information in this episode for practitioners than there is for people trying to make these decisions.
Well, I hope that the folks listening who are practitioners are sort of hearing the vulnerability that it takes to be somebody who has needs and to come to somebody in a professional capacity and ask them for help and to be met with sort of some of the things I was met with. And if I was in a sort of weaker mindset at the time, it might have stopped me. And I think that's important to say. Like if I was in a different space, and that's not their, it wouldn't have been their fault. Like it would have been me making the decision, right? So like I would have used it as like, well, here we go.
But it's the same as that dude that was like, you were funny fatter.
Exactly. It keeps this, you have this lingering sort of notion that it's like,
you're not going to do it.
I'm not going to be successful. And in the back of my mind, there's always that space that's like, this could be the thing that doesn't work too. And then you're out of stuff, right? So this was like the last stop on the throughway for me. And so if this didn't work, like I didn't have another plan and I didn't have another idea what I was going to do. So, you know, a lot of vulnerability here, folks. And I just want to say, like, it's hard to talk about this stuff, you know, because it feels like, you know, I'm kind of letting you guys into like my own process of kind of what it was like for me and sort of how tough it was. But, you know, being removed from it, I have a little bit of space between from where I was to where I am now. And so having success feels different. You know what I mean? Like if I hadn't had the success, like would we be having this conversation right now? Would I be talking the way that I'm talking? No, like I would be kind of defeated again and in a space where I'm like, I'm just giving up, you know? And so I don't want that for folks. I don't want folks to feel like they got to give up. I want folks to know that even if you're feeling down or you're feeling out or you're feeling like you're not in a place where you can do this, Neil and I believe in you. And that's not some like new age sort of positive spin stuff, you know, and you're paying money to be here. So that's even more reason why we want you to be successful, because we don't want you to die because we need your money.
We need your money. Right?
But truly, that's why we're doing this. Like when Neil approached me about this, it was like, we have to be the place where people can land safely and have these real conversations where you can hear us talking about this in ways you haven't heard people talk about.
It's really funny
at a level of depth.
So I'm going to wrap with this thought because we had a conversation off the record about being a poser.
Yeah, sure.
So I have been interviewing new podcast editing services, and they send me their portfolio, and it's a bunch of people making podcasts. And again, I don't want to take anything away from anybody, because if you're making a podcast and you have listeners, that's great. Or even if you have no listeners, you're putting yourself out into the world and saying something, and it's really great. Yeah. But I was watching some of them, and I'm like, who the heck are these people, and what are they even saying? Right? Like, I don't get that. Is that what I look like? Am I a poser? Right. Am I out here just kind of like doing my thing? And how come I don't sound like those polished podcasts or those wellness influencer guys that are doing the thing with the production team and all of that? And really what I've always said is I just need to be me. And I think I have a very unique voice here. But really, when Mark was talking about his story, it really solidified I don't really care anymore, right? So while I definitely think we're going to be bleeping the crap out of Mark for this conversation, for sure. And we're going to be cutting some stuff, I definitely think that it's really just about kind of telling our own story, and I think that stuttering, sweating profusely, horrible camera angles, I don't really care because I think that there's a gap here that needs to be filled. Yep. And if 10 years from now we're insanely successful and we have all that production company and we have a studio that has actual air conditioning and isn't the third pit of hell,
7,000 degrees,
then great. But really all that matters is that we can kind of tell the story and then be somebody that can try to support you guys. And so what I'll say is, like, this has been fantastic, this whole kind of behind the scenes with Mark. Again, thank you for spending that couple bucks a month to join us here. I want to give you VIP access to us. So if you need to say something to us, you have a question, or if you want to call out something that I have said to you and it wasn't done correctly, do that. So email us, wellnessupsidedown.com. That's our podcast email. You can also email podcast@wellnessupsidedown.com and say that you're a off the record subscriber. You will get priority access. We will take care of you instantly. And you know that you have that kind of like direct line to either one of us if you need our attention. So,
and just to say, like, this is, I think you're right. I mean, I think when we talked about sort of the podcast and kind of where we're going to find ourselves, is this feels important. Like, it feels like the kind of stuff that many people can relate to, and that we can sort of make a difference for folks who need this support and need this help in ways very specific, ways, your supplement side, your pharmacy side, my fitness side, nutrition side, like we're covering sort of the whole person here, right? And so this holistic approach that Neil talks about, he's not just talking about, he lives it. And so we're presenting to you is like, we're giving you the groundwork. We're kind of showing you who we are so that you can understand when we're giving you this support and help, we're coming from a place of like, we're not looking to be zillionaires off this thing. I want people to be successful, and I want people to feel the level of success that we've felt, and to know that it's accessible and it's possible. I use the word accessible because that's our word here. I had to. And this is available to you. It is. And so you can do this. And if no one's told you that and you haven't seen it yourself, we're telling you. And you can, and you will.
That does it for this week's episode of Off the Record. And until next week, keep plugging along on your wellness journey. Doing the right thing isn't always easy. Sometimes it stinks. And
like a suppository.
like a suppository. But I know that you can do it. Mark knows that you can do it.
And we're here to help.
But that's just us saying that off the record.
An interesting thing that also kind of came up here as an aside is that it seemed to dilute at each step. So I got this big dose of COVID, it seemed, but then my little bit spread to live in that little window, but didn't have it nearly as bad. And Rowan got it, but it was barely even a cold. And again, more real life experience here that helps solidify some of those fuzzy areas.